Most of the time, if I have access to a telephone conference call utility, I'm going to use that instead of Connect's voice over IP. Nothing against voice over IP, but people generally know how to use a telephone, and voice over IP, especially for an older crowd, is kind of new. However, it's a rare meeting where you have more than 5 or 10 participants that everybody can do the exact same thing. In other words, you might have some people that need to use voice over IP because they don't have access to a phone. Or you might have some people that are in an open office and have to use the phone and cannot use voice over IP. If you have a mix of those people and you have a conference call utility, you're in luck. Connect has a really wonderful tool called Universal Voice that you can configure and use with your meeting to allow both voice over IP and people using the telephone to attend your meeting and participate with audio. There's a couple of steps involved here, and the first step is actually to edit your profile a little bit. So I'm looking at my Adobe Connect dashboard, and under my profile, I'm going to find some configurations including my audio profiles and my audio providers. And the first step to this process is to configure an audio provider. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Your audio provider is nothing more than a conference call utility that you use. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Connect. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it up so that Connect can call into your audio conference provider. So we'll start by selecting New Provider. We'll give the provider a name. I'll call it My Audio Conference Utility. Obviously, you'll want to name it after the provider that you're choosing. And the reason you might have several is because you might be billing the audio minutes to whatever group you're presenting to based on the meeting that you're holding. So I'm going to enable this. And if I had a URL that gave me information about the audio provider setup, I can put that in here. I'm going to skip that here. But I do have to add a dial-in number. So let me scroll down here a little bit. Actually, I'll scroll down on the browser. The dial-in number is just a display number that you use for this particular provider. It's a way that you can have Connect help you if you need to dial manually for some reason. So the location, I'm just going to type as Ventura. The number is the number of the audio provider. Now, if you look down here, it says that the dial-in numbers are for display only. The numbers in the dial-in steps below is where the rubber really meets the road. Although you do have to put the number in up here, we're going to put it in again down here. Yes, it's a little redundant, but it's necessary for several administrative reasons. So down here is where we're really going to configure Connect to be able to dial into an audio conference. So we'll add a step, and the first step is to have Connect dial the number. It's going to be a conference number. We can label it anything we want. Call it main number. And then here is the number. This number doesn't have to be anything special. It's the same phone number you would use if you were going to dial this conference call using a telephone. Next, I want to add a little bit of a pause. Once the number's been dialed, I want the system to just wait gently until the system picks up. So instead of having another conference number, I'm going to add a delay. We'll just call it pause. And we'll have it wait for maybe a second. The delay is in milliseconds, so I'll type 1,000. That will give me a second. The next step is to enter the conference call ID or code. So instead of conference number, I'm going to choose DTMF. That's essentially going to have Connect enter the code as if it were punching them in on a phone's keypad. We'll label this, and then we'll add the code. Now, the code that you add is really up to you. Most conference call utilities have a guest code and a host code. I will almost always use the host code because when I start the conference and it dials into the conference call utility, I want it to activate the conference call as if it were the host dialing in. If for some reason you were using somebody else's conference utility and you only had the guest code, you could still put that in, but remember that the host would actually have to join the call in order for the call to work. Finally, I'm going to add a pause and a pound sign. So first off, we'll add the pause. And this time I'll choose 3 seconds. And then the pound sign. Most conference call utilities require a hash sign or a star sign or something like that after you've typed in the code so that it knows you're done. Label it £, actually have it punch the £, and there we go. Now, before I do anything else, I want to test this to make sure that it's going to work. And I can test the dial-in steps right here. When I push this button, Connect is actually going to call up the conference call utility, and I just want to listen to make sure that it's doing what I would expect it to do. So I'll click the button.
Please enter your conference. We're connecting you to your conference. You are the first party. You are joining the call as the host. You may touch #0 at any time for conference help.
And there. That's pretty much what I expected. So I know that I'm connected to the conference. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this. Scroll up. And I'm going to scroll up in my browser window because this is a mistake that I've made a few times and I want to help you prevent it. Before you do anything else, make sure you click Save, because if you don't save this, then the next step won't work because you won't have an audio provider to use. So click on Save. Now it's been saved. Okay, step 2. Now I need to configure an audio profile based on this provider. It's going to seem a little funny to do this twice and basically to create a profile that just uses that one provider. But again, there are administrative reasons that Connect breaks this into 2 pieces. For our purposes, it's basically going to be one thing, but you still have to configure it this way. So we've set up our provider. I'm going to go ahead and create a new audio profile. I'm going to choose my provider. I'm going to give the profile a name. And click Save. So now I'm configured. The next step is to apply this to a meeting. So what I'm going to do is jump over here to the home screen. And I can either create a new meeting or configure an existing meeting. So I'll go ahead and configure an existing meeting to use this. Edit the meeting's information, and I'm going to scroll down. And if you remember from the first time I showed you how to create a meeting, there were really only 2 audio conference options. Don't include any audio conference with this meeting. That's what you would do if you only wanted to use VoIP. Or include other audio conferencing with this meeting. That's where you would just type the number in, and people would have to take that information and dial it themselves. But now we have a third option here, include this audio conference with this meeting. Because my profile has an audio conference profile in it, I can choose it. So I'll select it. If I had more than one, I could choose from among them. I only have one, so it's going to be chosen. Once I've set that for the meeting, we'll go ahead and save this. So now to test it, all I'm going to do is jump into the room. I'll click on the room's URL. Connect will launch. It will open the room. And it will start the audio conference, connect to the bridge, and now I'm broadcasting audio. So my participant, Olivia, is going to go ahead and join the meeting. And there I can hear that Olivia has joined the meeting via telephone. And then all she needs to do is go ahead and jump into the meeting room itself, and she's good to go. Of course, she or anyone else could also join via voice over IP if they wanted to, but either way, anyone is able to participate in the meeting, both by watching what's going on screen and hearing and talking using voice over IP or the telephone.